How to beat Sky Strikers. I know there's a Sky Striker Trickstar deck, so after this video I'll make a Trickstar, how to beat Trickstar video. But for now, let's just focus on one archetype at a time, and then you take the knowledge from both vids, put it together, and then you should be able to deal with the Sky Striker Trickstar variant. Alright, so obviously Trickstars use a heavy amount of spells. They have one main deck monster at the current moment, and they have 3 exceeds. And if I'm right, this one's not out yet, but still they have 3 exceeds in the archetype currently. And they're machines, so that's something to note. And the main deck monster is a warrior, so obviously searchable by Rhoda. They have a lot of spells, but I like to focus on the main ones that I personally like, but as well as the ones that you might want to focus on dealing with. Everything else is just generic, like something that can MST, something that can destroy monster, right? Simple generic stuff. You know, you're used to those types of stuff. But as you can see, Hornet Drones makes a token. They use the token to link summon, so that's noteworthy. This has the ability to target one face-up monster on the field and negate that face-up monster's effect until the end of turn. So that's how they'll negate monster effects. So this is like their breakthrough skill, or their forbidden chalice, as it were, their veiler, or whichever way you want to look at it. So you don't want them to negate your monster effects, because you might need monster effects. Then we have Ego Booster, target one face-up monster on the field. That target is unaffected by card effects this turn. So this is a way they can, this is their forbidden lance. It's a way of protecting themselves from board wipe type cards like Dark Hole, Mirror Force, that type of stuff. Even from something like a Black Rose play or something. Evenly matched, they could protect themselves from evenly matched. So anything else, it basically turns any of their Trickstar monsters into an Ultimate Falcon. And a Trickstar Sky Striker into an Ultimate Falcon. Double checking this. Yeah, based on this effect, you can even use this to protect your Trickstars if you're playing Trickstar Sky Strikers. But anyway, and then there's the multi-roll, the continuous spell card. This will allow them to reset and reuse their spell cards. Depending on what they use, determines how the deck is going to function. But these are the main spells that I see that I know I would use, as well as we will have to deal with the most, because you want to avoid your effects being negated. You want to avoid the fact that your effects in cards can't affect their monsters, right? So you want to be able to deal with that. And then the fact that they can just one card link summon, that's something that's noteworthy, of course. And these have abilities, but I'm not going to go through them. Let's just focus on how to deal with them. Something as simple as an MST, so you can pop the multi-roll, so that way they don't have the multi-roll to use. It's useful because this is one of the ways they recur their spell cards after they use them. Twin Twister, same thing. Like if they set a whole, if you go first and you have these on the field, and then they start playing some cards, and then they set some cards, and then they end the turn, especially if they play this to set a whole bunch of cards. That's why the MST is very useful, because you want to prevent this from setting any cards. So once you see them play this, you want to pop it. That way it's in the grave, along with all the other spells that are hopefully in the grave, like the Hornet Drones and whatnot. And you don't have to worry about them coming back, so that's very useful to keep in mind. But if they decide to just like set a whole bunch of spells, or back row in general, right, and then maybe just play a Hornet bit, make a token, then use the token to link summon, and then what one of these have the ability to, I think it's that one, has the ability to add the Hornet bit back to the hand, so they'll add it back to the hand there. Now they got free 1500 link monster on the field to play with that they can, you know, attack you with and whatnot. And then they'll set the back row and their turn. You might want to just, you know, get rid of it. You don't want them to be able to use it on your turn. And since they're quick play spell cards, you know, they're chainable, so you want to avoid them chaining on your turn. So there's no point to and twistering on your turn because they'll just chain their spells, unless you're trying to trigger the cards before you even make any moves. But you definitely don't want them to play Ego Booster to make their Link Monster unaffected. Definitely don't want them to make a, you know, token so they can defend themselves. So you want to prevent that. Just making sure they can't reuse any of these cards. Chaining, even chaining to the activation of a card. Like any of one of these cards that might be problematic, like the Hornet Bit, you know, or the Widow Anchor. You can, when they activate it, you can chain Cosmic Cycle, pay 1,000 and banish it. Now you don't have to worry about it getting recycled, being recurred, you know, being grabbed back from the graveyard and being reused. Also, you will reduce the number of copies of spells in the graveyard, so that way these cards don't get their added bonus ability when you have when your opponent has 3 or more spells in the graveyard. So obviously anything that helps banish from the graveyard is useful. You know, something like a Rhapsody Berserk banishing some spells, the Crow, you know, banishing some spells, you know, Macrocosmos, anything that, you know, prevents Dark Law, you know, Arclight, anything that makes it hard for them to get 3 spells in the graveyard is very useful. Then we got Necro Valley, that will help prevent the recursion. That would be useful against the multi-roll. Be useful against Shizuku, yeah, from your deck. You know what that says on the deck. So it's not that one, is it? In the graveyard, editing. Yeah, this is the one. Kagari. Alright, so Kagari is the one that grabs from the graveyard. Well, you want to prevent that. So Necro Valley comes in handy for that. It's a field spell, so it's, you know, searchable. You can, if you're already playing a field spell with terraforming, you know, you can take out 1 copy of your field spell to just tech in this Necro Valley, and then of course the terraformings can always grab either one of the field spells whenever you need it. Your main field spell from your deck's design, like let's say you're playing Trickstars, your light stage, but at least you have an extra option of the Necro Valley. And then we have Secret Village of the Spellcasters. If you're playing a Spellcaster deck, why wouldn't you be playing this, right? Or at least as a side deck card. But it definitely should be a main deck card, right? Gives you control, gives you advantage. Why wouldn't you play this in a Spellcaster deck, right? This will prevent your opponent from playing spell cards as long as you control a Spellcaster. So it definitely will hurt the Sky Strikers. Solemn Strike to prevent the link summonings, also useful against preventing the effect of any of the Sky Strikers from being able to do any of their specific effects, or if in general your opponent builds a board, because you know links, Sky Striker link monsters are not the only thing you're going to deal with. You can deal with a whole bunch of link monsters like Firewall Dragon or something. So you want some way of stopping their summoning, or at least if they're already on the field, you want to be able to get, you know, deal with their effects. So Solemn Strike, great card for preventing boards being established, but also good for breaking boards. Dark Bribe. This deck is heavy on spells, but a lot of times you don't care about them playing certain spells that don't affect you as much. Like a card that prevents their monsters from being affected by card effects is usually irrelevant. Like, let them play that. Let their, you know, monster be unaffected for that turn. It's when your opponent's trying to destroy your stuff or try to negate your monster effects or try to do something to you, then you want to Dark Bribe it. You know, you want to, or negate it in some shape, way, or form. You want to use some type of negation. And this is universally good. Plus, it, you know, it's good against evenly match and anything else of that nature. So it's always a good card to have. Curse of Darkness. You can just let them play themselves to death, right? If you're playing a burn deck like Chain Burn or something like that, obviously this is a good a good main deck card in general, because most chain burn decks obviously is heavy on traps. So you can obviously play this without hurting yourself. But any deck that is heavy on spells will hurt themselves. And if you can get at least 2,000 damage out of this, out of one copy of Curse of Darkness S, it did its job. If it does at least 2,000 damage, it definitely did its job perfectly. If it only does 1,000, it did something. But if it does 2,000 or more, it definitely earned its spot, right? And then it can act as a deterrent for them playing a whole bunch of heavy spells. Sometimes it's not about just flat out not letting them do anything, letting anybody you play against do anything. Sometimes it's just about reducing how much they do, not necessarily just stopping everything. It's hard to stop everything, right? Sometimes. Imperial Order, they could play all the spells they want, but they'll be useless, right? And you could play this in Monarchs. True Dracos. Any deck that you're playing that uses continuous traps, this would be useful for. Or any deck that's not, you're playing this heavy on traps but not spells, this would be useful in, and so on and so on. Ultimate Providence, ultimate counter trap. It can negate spells, traps, or monster effects. You just gotta discard the appropriate card to get the effect. So basically, it's the counter trap version of Macabre. So it's useful. Obviously, you can use it to deal with any of the Trickstar monsters. The Sky Striker's effects, or just negate one of the spells that's problematic. America Bid Virus, if you can pull this off, obviously say spells. Any spells they currently have will be gone, and for the next 3 turns, any spells they draw will also go to the grave, which will make their life hard, since the deck is largely spells. Macrocosmos, whenever they play a spell, it'll get banished instead of going graveyard, so they won't get their added abilities. Even if your opponent's still playing some of the spell cards to get some type of advantage, at least they're not getting extra advantage. So you don't have to flat out prevent them from being able to use any of their cards. Just slow them down from getting any extra advantage. It's just good enough. At least it gives you the ability to fight. That's the thing. You just want the battle to not be a 90 to 10%, right? They got the 90%, you got the 10%. You want at least to balance that up a little bit, where you have like 45% versus their 55%. Where they still have the advantage, but at least it's not a one-sided battle. So you want to try to even things out, right? Rivalry Warlords, their main deck monster as well as the token, because the token is a warrior, and their link monsters are machines. Just by playing Rivalry Warlords, you can prevent them from link summon, as well as you can use this to break the boards if they get a whole bunch of link monsters on the field with different attributes. Creature types. You can use this to just shrink down their board, to break the board relatively easy just by activating this. So you can use this to prevent a board from being created, but you can also use this to break a board after it was already created. Goes to match, same premise. The main deck monster is dark, the token is dark, but the extra deck monsters, as you can see, are of different attributes. So Goes to Match will have relatively the same effect as Rivalry by preventing them from summoning, or if they have multiple attributes, activate this, and then they have to get rid of some until they only have one, because there can only be one. Banisher Radiance, it's a walking macrocosmos, a way to prevent them from getting a lot of spells on the grave. DD Crow, especially if they go first and they do a lot of stuff, it's a hand trap, so the ability to reduce them from getting any extra benefits, or just getting rid of anything that's problematic in general, where it's like, they have that card, I don't want them to have that card, and if they can add it back to the hand, I want to prevent that. So DD Crow comes in handy in that. If they manage to build a decent board, or just get a really good monster that's going to be problematic, so the spells become a little irrelevant, or they're using the spells to protect that big monster that's hard to deal with. Like, let's say they make a Firewall Dragon, and then they use Ego Booster, and then they keep using Ego Booster to protect the Firewall Dragon, then it'd be nice to have a Kaiju, right? especially if you're already playing kaijus or siding it or whatnot. At least you have it. You have a way to deal with that problem. Great Shogun Shien and Notorious Rose Whip. Depending on what decks you're playing, these are pretty good options to slow your opponent down from having multiple spells and traps. Play multiple spells and traps. So after they play one and it resolves, they can't play no more. So this is a way of slowing down your opponent. I personally use Notorious Rose Whip because it's smaller, easier to use. It's a tuner, so Needle Fiber can bring it out from the deck onto the field. It has 17 defense, which is pretty decent. As long as I protect it, it'll do its job. And it is a tuner, so I can use it for Synchro Summon, among other things. Great Shogun Shien is a nice version, nice body, 2500 beater with the ability built in. But because he still will be a tribute monster unless I'm playing 6 Samurais, he's not as good as a tech card as Notorious Rose Whip would be, because Notorious Rose Whip will act, can help me synchro into something useful, like a FA Dawn Dragster or into a Notorious Beast, and give me an advantage against any heavy spell based decks. Then we got Spell Canceller, 1800. Decent attack power, not the best. 1900 and up will always be better. But a 1 tribute 1800, can put in work relatively easy, especially if you defend it. And I always defend any monsters I'm trying to use as an advantage. I always play some type of support, like my red screen with Spell Canceller. Now my monsters can attack, your monsters can't, and you can't play spells, so you can't get rid of the red screen, which means you can never attack as long as red screen's on the field, and blah blah blah. And then I can attack because you can't stop me. Denko Seka, if they have their spells set and you play Denko Seka, now you don't have to worry about them activating their face down set spells in response to any move you make, and then you can start making some moves. Especially if one of your moves is like some type of combo where you make a Black Rose play, right? And then like boom, Black Rose, and then you just Black Rose the field. Since they can't respond with any of their set spells or traps, now you can just board wipe them. As long as you keep the Denko Seka on the field, bring out Black Rose, resolve everything. Or you can summon Denko Seka and then go into battle, evenly match, and then you can wipe your opponent's board. So there's that. It just depends on the strategy. You get a similar result if you summon Spell Canceller, making it hard for them to use their spells, and then use some type of card to break their board, evenly match, or anything of that nature. Have the monsters unaffected by spells, so none of the spells that largely affect or are designed to affect your monsters won't affect you. So you'll reduce them to the types of options they have. So you don't have so that comes in handy. I'm having a monster that's unaffected by their spells. Also Diana to prevent any link summoning, because their spells are good and all, but if they can't summon anything to do you damage, you're just gonna keep attacking them, and they're gonna have all these spells. They can't do much, right? The only thing they could probably use would be a Widow Anchor to negate that effect. But if you protect the Fossil Diana from being affected by a card like that, like through a Dark Bribe effect or through your own lance, or even from you can't use this, but even from your own your own lance, and make it where you're unaffected by their spells. Now you have something that prevents them from special summoning, so they can't make no tokens to protect themselves. They can't link summon into any type of protection, so you can just keep attacking them. And anything that gives you a similar effect, that prevents special summoning, are useful cards, because if they can't summon link monsters, they can't really do much. They'll just be relying on their spells, and their spells, you could probably slow them down. Especially if you have like a Curse of Darkness Fossil Diana play, that would be annoying for a Spell Striker player. Since the link monsters are machines, you got Fortress as an option if you play any Cyber Dragon cards. Mega Fleet. useful, you know, since a lot of times a lot of the link monsters would be in the extra monster zone. You can use Mega Fleet to get rid of it, as long as you have a Cyber Dragon for it. Then Troymare Phoenix will give you the ability to destroy a spell or trap when this card is link summoned by discarding a card. That can come in handy, you know, in getting rid of, or at least forcing the trigger, because sometimes that's the thing, you just want them to activate something sooner than later. So playing something like this, playing something like Hey True Nate or something like playing anything that will trigger or force them to do something is always a good play, especially since this is on summon. You know, that's useful. You know, you summon it, you triggers effect, you know, discard for its ability, and if they respond with something, alright, they respond with something. What they freaking do, but at least this is with on summon, so you don't have to worry about them trying to, you know, prevent you from activating, as it were. Like, let's say they have a face down bomb as trap hole. Like, alright, cool, you have something to deal with me summoning it, but since, you know, it's still, its effect was on summon, not a once per turn I activate during main phase type ability. It's on summon, the bombless won't prevent me from still popping something on the field. Hopefully my target wasn't the bombless, because then that would have been a waste of a play, right? Hopefully I'm targeting something else and then I get bombless, so I just got rid of 2 cards. Hopefully that's what you want. Cerberus can help you obviously get rid of any problematic monsters that's not in the extra zone, in case your opponent just starts link summoning. So this can help you break down your opponent's board. Combine this with Phoenix, it'll make it hard to destroy you by card effects, and, you know, of course by battle if you combine these two together. Flat out negations, and anything that can help you stop them from playing certain cards is useful. A monster that can defend itself from the spell striker spells, you know, or even effects, are very useful. Like Infinity, totally awesome. And the funny thing is to steal your opponent's spell striker spell, right, and then use it for yourself, right? That's lots of fun. One that reduces the number of spells in their graveyard, and then it gives you something you can play. If you have enough spells in your graveyard, you'll get the added bonus effect of the card, of the spell striker card. You just gotta make sure you got nothing in your main monster zone, which might not be too hard if all you had was the totally awesome in the extra monster zone and some back row, right? And at least one space for you to steal something, right? And then we got YUGIOH can negate spells and traps and monster summons, so you can obviously stop a link summon, or you can, you know, just stop the spell card in general. Like if they play a Hornet bit and you're like, you know what, I'll let that go through, and then let them link summon, then you'd be like, you know what, I'll negate them to link summon. You know what I mean? So you can do stuff like that if you want, or you can just flat out stop the spell, the Hornet bit spell. The thing about stopping the Hornet bit spell is that if they have another one, well, they're gonna play the second one and still link summon. So you might want to let the Hornet bit go through, you know, or Hornet drones, what's called. Let the Hornet drones go through, and then let them link, and then just stop the link summon. Because, you know, if they link summon into Kagero so they could try to get the Hornet drone back, obviously that's something you want to stop. Notorious Beast, you know, mill the top 2 cards of your deck, negate a spell, so you can just keep negating, and hopefully that should give you the advantage, at least for one turn. Doesn't have to give you the advantage for the whole entire duel, at least for one turn. If you have the Nat Beast, you can slow your opponent down and hopefully deal enough damage to win before they, you know, get their impermanence or get a Veiler or a Ghost Ogre, you know. To, you know, can't believe the spell striker player ain't gonna play no hand traps or add anything to their deck to give them help against stuff like the Notorious Beast. So you gotta take that into account. If you're playing Samurais, you can use Legendary 6 Samurai Shien. Any deck that can make a 7-star synchro, you can use Dawn Dragster. Any deck that can make a 4-star synchro, can use Arc Light. Any monster sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard is banished instead. So that'd be useful if your opponent's link summoning, and you can, you know, banish some of the link materials. If they try to bring stuff back from the graveyard to reuse, like a firewall dragon type play, you can use this to prevent, you know, a firewall loop. So that's always useful. But also this has the other ability, which is during either player's turn, when a spell card, trap card, or monster effect is activated, you contribute this card to negative the activation. If you do, destroy that card. So obviously, you know, this will allow you to negate, you know, a very problematic spell card that you want to negate. Ravishing Berserk will help you clear out the graveyard, banish 2 cards. Dark Law will make anything that goes to the graveyard get banished. And then having monsters that are unaffected, like Ultimate Falcon, unaffected by, you know, card effects. Full Armored Master, unaffected by card effects, so you don't have to worry about much. You just gotta deal with their monsters, which hopefully it'd be easy for you to deal with, since these are pretty strong. 3,000, 3,500, pretty strong. And that's the end of the video.